So Friday slate, we got some fresh new series, all kinds of weekend action, even going on across the pond in London. But how are we betting all of it? That's what you're here to find out. First pitch on WagerTalk TV. Dan Alexander with you. And joining me for this Friday slate, I got Steve Merril. I got Adam Trigger with me. While you're hanging out with us, why don't you hit that like button? And if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed. But gentlemen, we're a little tardy here. I say we get right into it for the folks. And Steve, let's start with you and talk the Mariners and the Royals. I'm seeing Miller and Lynch. What is that? IV the fourth going to be on the mound for KC. How are we looking to bet this one? Kind of been an up and down start for our man D Lynch.
Yeah, first of all, Dan, I'm just glad you arrived safely across the pond in London at Heathrow. So happy travels back to LA after watching your Phillies play the Mets for 2 games. I don't quite understand why they don't do this right before the All-Star break. The travel is insane. We'll talk about that later, maybe at the end of the show. A little advance play against team next week. Probably not a team you're going to want to hear me say, but I think that's going to be a tough trip back for the Mets and the Phillies. We talked about the Royals last week. Last Friday, I was here on the show, and I used the Padres as a road favorite in Game 1 against Kansas City, and I mentioned how the Royals were an incredible 21-8 at home this season, and they were due to regress. They were off to an impressive start, but I did think they would start to regress, and I think we're seeing that happen here over the last week or so. KC has now lost 5 of 7, and they've lost overall 7 of their last 10 games. They come in here on a 3-7 slide. Now the only three home games during that span, they went 1-2 against San Diego. A weird little 2-game road series against Cleveland, in which they did hit the ball well. 20 hits, 9 runs, went 1-1. But now in come the Mariners, who are playing excellent baseball. Now, granted, they did benefit from playing the Angels and the Athletics, 2 weak teams. But the Mariners have still won 9 of their last 11 games. If you look, though, they've been staying under the total in a lot of those as their offense is cooling off. So I do like road favorites on Fridays, but Kansas City's a strong home team. I think the under could be worth a look here. And that'd be my preferred way to play this. I would lean Mariners. No disagreement with if you're going to play the -130 road favorite here. But now that this line's gone up to that key number of 9, it briefly opened 8.5. It's one of the higher totals on the board, and I just can't get there with 2 very mediocre offenses. This is a Seattle team that's been winning with pitching, and I think at 9 or higher, we actually get a little bit of value now under that key number.
Looking towards the under, and of course, kind of tongue-in-cheek about our man's being up and down. He's been optioned and re-optioned about umpteen times this year, and now that era is finally going to get underway. So it's an unknown commodity what you're going to get on the bump for Kansas City. So hop below in the comments and let us know. Is that kind of a stay away for you, or are you agreeing with Steve? The potential under sitting at a key number could be worth the look. Speaking of the chat, shout out to you guys over there. Are you Zen? Big Munch chiming in here on the YouTube Shorts feed, and Locked and Loaded. They were even hopping in here asking questions before we even started over on the YouTube feed. Tyler, Titan CT, Wisconsin guy, Anthony Thornhill chiming in, Titan CT, all of you. We appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like button while you're chilling with us here today. Trig, one of the questions that was asked before we even hopped on here, they wanted to hear about this Tigers game. They're going up against the Brewers. Tyler pointed out he seems like he's always trying to look to back the Tigers. Is this a spot to do it for our man Tyler, or are you looking the other way with the Brew Crew?
So I've been looking to fade the Tigers all year, not because so much I think the Tigers are a bad team. I just think the market has had them priced like a 90-win team since the beginning of the season. I just say that because coming into the season win total, the most popular over on the board was the Tigers. It was like 82.5 wins. And so I think that's like permeated throughout the course of the season through the market. I feel like they get treated like this 85 to 90 win team when I think they're more like what they've shown that they are so far this year to this point, which is a 500 team. And, I don't even know that the Tigers are a 500 team going forward unless they sort of figure some stuff out, because I don't think anyone that thought the Tigers would be good this year had Spencer Torkelson back down in AAA at this point in the year. Guys like Kenta Maeda and Jack Flaherty, battling injuries, both potentially on the IL. going forward. Kerry Carpenter on the IL. So, that to me, though, that right there has the Tigers as sort of a team that I'd look to play against. Now, we'll talk about Olsen in a second, how good he's been, how good Skubal's been. But that's just my general view of the Tigers. Now, the Brewers are a team that I'm not like overly high on them either. But I do think maybe that this number has been watered down a little bit by the fact that they just got swept in Philly, which I don't really give them much of I'm not going to downgrade the Brewers much from getting swept in Philadelphia in a series where they had to face Nola, they had to face Zach Wheeler. They didn't play particularly bad. They just couldn't score. But, I mean, not that many teams in Major League Baseball have scored off of those two guys. For Philly this year, it was actually a very competitive series, and they just ended up on the wrong side of like 3 low-scoring close games. So I do think you maybe get a little bit of a bounce back this weekend, from the Brewers, just for that reason. Now, Reese Olson, I have no reason to play against him here from like a baseball standpoint. His numbers have been great. He's been awesome, but he did get knocked around against the Red Sox last week. Really the first time, not the first time all season, but sort of the first time he's been hit kind of hard to the point where he gave up 5 runs, 5 1/3. And so just like, I think the market is still at its very peak on Olsen. Like, I don't know that he is a guy that stays under 2 with the ERA. Like, some of those numbers through the first month or 2 months of the season for Olsen were just so insanely good that I think it could only maybe trend, a little bit downward going forward. Now, I was just looking at my phone prior to, the camera cutting back to me because I wanted to know what the Brewers were going to do with their pitching. When I picked this game, they hadn't announced a pitcher yet. Now it looks like it's going to be Tobias Myers, which I was kind of hoping they would go with him because this has now moved already like 20 cents. This was Brewers, I think, minus 115 when the thought that Peralta might pitch on 4 days rest was the case. Now you've got Myers. I think he's the better option here. Had a rough go about a week ago against the White Sox, but he's someone I've watched in AAA that's been solid down there. Called up, he had a very good start. I think it was against the Cardinals. Couple good starts. When he came up. And I actually thought they might go with an opener here, something the Brewers have had success with over the past couple weeks. But it looks like it's going to be Myers. And predictably, the market has started to bet the Tigers. This has started to move toward the Tigers. So I'm not sure if I'll jump in with a client play here, but Brewers at anything like even money or better seems good to me in this spot. I think Myers is a little bit better than the market's giving him credit for, and I think you're probably paying a premium for Olsen at this point on what is really a 500 team, in my opinion, with the Tigers. So Brewers the better team. Myers a little bit underrated. I lean toward Brewers minus 105. Not sure if it'll make my card, but certainly giving it a look.
Yeah, and as Trig was talking there, you saw just the stark difference in bullpen numbers for these two teams. I mean, the top of that chart, all that red that you see here for Detroit. And then if you look at the second column and you look at even what they've done in the last 5, you would figure that Milwaukee, with the fact that they were in a series with the Phils that was runs where it's such a premium that would be the team heading into this series that maybe has a little bit more usage numbers that you would be looking at there. But, sure, there were a lot of different pitchers that went, but because they spread those out, Milwaukee bullpen arms aren't going to be coming in here all that taxed. So it could be another thing behind the starting pitching edge as you could be potentially looking at there, that you have some better, well-rested arms, which kind of, I think, would fly in the face of what you would think if you just looked at what happened in these last series for both of these teams. So interesting to note there. But Milwaukee, worth the look. Not an official play or anything, but definitely worth the look. Hop below in the comments. Let us know if you agree. Gentlemen, speaking of the comments, we had our man Big Buff 403. This is a marquee game, man. So Big Buff wants to hear about the Dodgers and the Yankees. A lot of Big Buff dudes in this one hopping up to the plate. It's Yamamoto and Petit that you're going to be seeing It's hard for me, Steve, to not look at this plus money with the Yankees and just want to grab that. I know it's against the Dodgers, but they're the ones going on the highway. They stumbled a little bit here in their last series as well. So at plus 120 or better, I mean, talk me off of playing this Yankees team, or is that how you would look at it?
Yeah, it's a good game to talk about from Big Buff 403. Not to be confused with Big Buff 404. Two totally different guys. Big Buff 404 is actually extremely skinny, which is very interesting. It's very comical if you see him in person. Yeah, Dan, this jumped out to me as well when I saw the line. I was like, wow. Because I was curious to see where they would price this, because it's probably the most high-profile series of the year so far, other than the Phillies Mets in London. I mean, it's a big day on Fox tomorrow. They got the Belmont in between those two games. But yeah, it seems public, it seems obvious, but then again, it's not only that the Dodgers are underperforming, but they're not in good current form right now even. And this is a team we've talked about quite often on the show. We keep waiting for them to kind of flip a switch and start, playing up to their potential. But you just look at what they've done here. Their last 6 games, they're 3-3. Their last 12 games, they're 6-6. I mean, this is a 500 team. Offensively, they've been very inconsistent. The Yankees, meanwhile, are getting it done with pitching this season. They enter here off of 8 straight wins. I'm not fading the Yankees as a home dog here, but then again, the line has gone from 120 up to 135, and I do think the public's on the dog. So this is a sharp square divide on the Dodgers. So let's look at the total instead. I talked about this in the last game. It's 8.5 opener. Now it's up to 9 under. Yes, I know the Dodgers can break out at any point, but the Yankees also live and die by the long ball. They've been putting up some runs. You look at the Yankees here. They've gone over now 6 of their last 7. But they've had 11 hits or less in every one of those games. They've had single-digit hits in 5 of those 7 games. If the long balls are held in check here, I think under 9 could have some value.
Trig, for me and the chat as well, they're asking all about, hey, is Juan Soto going to be in the lineup? I mean, with what Judge is doing, it might end up being a moot point. But what was it? It was a left forearm discomfort or something like that he ended up leaving for. So I'm seeing that he's showing as questionable. I don't know if he is in the lineup. If he isn't, does one player like that in the lineup affect how you would bet this game? Do you agree that plus 120? I mean, you're my run line guy. You're my taking 1.5 guy. I think it's only 140 that we have to lay to take a run and a half with our Yankees here. What do we think?
Yeah, no, I think that's the case with the run line. I don't hate that. No, I don't think Soto's going to play. I don't think it makes sense to run him back out there. If he actually does have some forearm tightness, it would be the Yankees have the luxury right now of their roster being so loaded and so deep that it's June 7th, right, Dan? Yes, June 7th. They wouldn't need to do that. And I saw that Jason Dominguez left Scranton's game in like the 8th inning last night. So my guess is I bet they push Soto off a couple days, and it probably opens a spot for Dominguez to come back. But again, I understand it's a big marquee series and whatnot, but if you're the Yankees, why would you risk potentially a small thing turning into a big thing just to get him into the lineup here? So to answer the 2 questions, no, I don't think he plays tonight, and no, I don't think it matters that much because probably gets Dominguez in your lineup. So from a 1-game standpoint, not a huge move the number.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And in the case of Yamamoto, you better hope that he has a quality start out of him, because as you saw those bullpen numbers for the LA Dodgers heading in here, you probably don't want tired arms going up against Judge, whether Soto's in or not. Some taxing numbers that you see there, at least here in the last 3, and it's not much better. If you look at the case of the Yankees, so there's just some thoughts there, at least maybe some worries of keeping you on or off. But for me, I would be kicking myself if I didn't take plus money at home with a team who is on the tear that they're on. So call me square, call me whatever. I'm gonna do the little make it into a run line, getting a run. I'm gonna do plus 1.5 at 140. I'm gonna take that plus money too. So we can on Monday circle back and be like, hey Dan, nice square play on Friday. Thanks for making us lose on the Yankees. But I'd be kicking myself heading into the weekend if I didn't roll on it. Hop below in the comments. Let us know how you're looking to bet that game. A terrific marquee game heading in here to the weekend. Should be one hell of a series for sure there at Yankee Stadium. Trig, I'm going to throw it back your way because earlier it was funny. A couple people were hopping in the chat, like our man Ace Rothstein. He said, "Oh, Trig's on here, so at least we can cut the best bets in half because we know he's going to go with the White Sox getting the run and a half." But Wisconsin guy also points out line seems a little bit short here with Boston, even though Crochette's going to be taking the mound. So Boston and White Sox. Folks probably shocked to know cash the no at plus money. This isn't featured in best bets, but we'll talk it here, Trig.
So believe it or not, this is like totally anti like what you'd expect from me. But I would only bet the Red Sox here because I don't think Crochet is worth that much to the White Sox as a team. I think I've said it a couple of times. Like these bad teams, I'm really only willing to back getting the run and a half, right? I don't think I've made a win bet on the White Sox all year. I think it's only been plus 1.5. And that really goes across the board for like the very bottom teams in the league. So, Criswell's not bad. He's had pretty good numbers. He's someone that had some success at Worcester earlier this year. He's not, you look at this matchup, the White Sox have now lost, I think it's 14 in a row? I think it would be 15 if they lose this one. I get it. Like they're a favorite, right? Teams lost 14 straight and they're a favorite. I just don't know how you could lay even minus 110, minus 115 here, even if that's like what the market is telling you to do. The Red Sox are clearly the better team. And so unless you get a wipeout start from Crochet where he's, he just mows guys down 7 innings. And then you still have to potentially sweat out the White Sox bullpen, which, the Kopech, back end of that bullpen hasn't been quite as automatic as it was in April when they would take a lead into the later innings. I'm not going to bet this game, but I would only bet the Red Sox here. I couldn't lay minus 115 with the White Sox. And to be honest, had the Red Sox not just won 14-2 yesterday, I probably would be trying to take a shot with the Red Sox at this price. But for me, no bet. Probably a low-scoring game, slightly in Boston.
Man, that's shocking. Now we're fading Trig's own love, the Chicago White Sox. Only that are red. Steve, what do you think about this one? You got anything on the total in this one, or do you see the side kind of the same way that Trig is seeing? And we're basically looking at a pick 'em price. You can shop around, get a better price on either side that you would want. But how do you see this one shaking out?
Yeah, a couple quick things. First of all, Crochet he is that good. And I did a video with Paul Skeens the other day for Pittsburgh against the Dodgers. By the way, the Dodgers were a dog at Pittsburgh, and then a couple days later, they're a favorite against the Yankees on the road. How crazy is that? But it just shows how much pitching dictates these lines. But in that Skeens game earlier, it was like minus 110 game, and then it was like minus 140 first 5 inning. You look today, it's minus 110 game, it's minus 135 first 5 innings. So the bullpen is obviously a concern for the White Sox, but Crochet is an excellent pitcher. He's the real deal, and I do think they have a shot to win here. But the under makes sense also because Chicago has no offense. If they win this game, it's going to probably have to be low scoring. So once again, I think the under 8 here would be a good play.
Robert S. pointing out he feels that the team from the Merril Institute could be beating the White Sox. 14 straight defeats. It's hard to argue with our man Robert S. Dosa in the chat. He's staying away. He's got this marked as his toilet bowl game of the night with the Battle of the Sox. He's flushing it down and will do the same. Okay, you could say that the White Sox are meeting expectations with just how poor they've been. It's been impressively bad during this last 2-week stretch, but a team that certainly isn't meeting expectations that they have set for themselves, Steve, is the Astros as they're taking on the Angels tonight. And we talk all the time on these Friday shows. That's why I love having you on here to head into the weekend. Road favorites and why it makes sense to back road favorites. You got Valdez on the mound, Canning on the other side. You're looking at a team that's 3-7 in their last 10, but 4-6 for Houston. Like this team, you keep figuring, hey, if they can put a couple wins together, they'll be able to figure it out. It just hasn't happened here for Houston. Is this the dose that they need? A road favorite spot against the lowly LA Angels who stink to high hell at home. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, but by the way, I was looking here at the White Sox real quick, of 15-48 on the season. They went 3-22. They're 0-14, so that's 3-36, which means they're exactly 12-12 in all other games in between. So do what you want with that, but it just shows how random these baseball seasons can be.
So
3-22, 12-12, 0-14. That's the 3 runs they've been on. So if you can time it, you can make a lot of money, good and bad. If you can time it, that's the big question. By the way, the Angels are only 3.5 games behind the Astros now. And if you'd said that at the beginning of the season, you'd be like, oh, Anaheim's having a pretty good season. Well, it's because both are having bad seasons, and the Angels finally started to win some home games. They were the only team a couple of weeks ago, I believe, that didn't have double-digit home wins. And it took them the last 3 games this week against San Diego to go from 7 to 10 wins at home. So they do have a little bit of momentum, but then as you dig deeper, you realize they're still not really hitting the ball. But I think the over could have some value in this game tonight. In fact, I use this as my free play of the day at WagerTalk.com. So you can go there right now, get the full detailed analysis for this game. And one thing I point out in that analysis is that Valdez, although a solid starter, has struggled with this lineup. He struggled with them a few weeks ago, one of his worst start of the season. And then last summer, he had a bad start against them also. In fact, this current Angels lineup is hitting 353, and that's on 102 at-bats, 36 for 102, 353. Griffin Canny, I also think, will struggle tonight. I project a 4.7 ERA. So my pitcher projection ratings look for both starters to get hit. So first 5 over or the full game over, both make sense.
I like that. I like asking for some runs here to kick off the weekend. And Trig, your thoughts on this one? I mean, even with, I think Steve kind of touched upon it there, even with that sweep, oh my goodness, the Angels positive momentum heading in here, 10-21 on the season at home at their own ballpark. So home cooking 9 has not been Angels baseball. Anything for you to add to what Steve touched upon in this one?
I mean, I'll co-sign on Steve's over there. I was going to make a case for the Astros, but I do think the Astros probably win this series. For what it's worth, like I think if you just look at the weekend in general, the Astros probably come away series winners. Now, I don't know what the series price is. I don't have that offhand. I don't even know if I would want to bet that. I don't know if I would want to lay minus 160 in this spot. Steve made a good point. Valdez's numbers against the Angels are not great. Things I would want to see, Alex Bregman back in the lineup. That's like the key for me. I wouldn't touch the Astros without him. But if you get him back tonight, he has really, really good career numbers against Canning. Certainly would help them score and help the over. But the reason I would oppose the Angels this weekend is the Padres earlier this week was very self-inflicted, in my opinion. The Angels swept, they were able to sweep the Padres 3 straight low-scoring games. Padres just can't hit right now. It spilled over into last night's game. So I think that's more of a Padres problem than it is the Angels having just like this great pitching. The Angels bullpen has been bottom 5 all year, Major League Baseball, and they just squeaked out 3 straight close wins. So that's not going to continue to happen, which is why I think that, maybe there are some runs late here in this game, which would tilt me toward thinking Steve's on the right track with the over, because maybe you get some from both and you can get to 4-4 at any point. You've got a winner in this one. So I think that's probably the best way to look at it. Over 8.5 in this game.
Hop below in the comments. Let us know how you're looking to bet that one. Also, while you're hanging out with us, make sure you hit that like button. If you're joining us here on Instagram or X, if you haven't already, hit that follow. We'd love to keep getting you that info across different social medias. And of course, while you're hanging here on YouTube, whether it's on the shorts feed, on vertical on your phone, or you're going old-fashioned, going on the desktop, make sure you hit that subscribe. Tell your friends to tune in. We got content coming your way around the clock here. One of the games that wanted to be touched upon here, our man Tyler, Baltimore and Tampa Bay. He's saying, I lean Rays with how they hit left-handed pitchers, but I'm not sure about Savali. Maybe the over is the play. Steve, help me make sense of this one, because I get it. The Rays, 3 straight wins. They recently had been playing the Marlins, 5 wins out of their last 7 outings. So you could argue Tampa Bay is hot, but if you're looking at openers on the WagerTalk Live odds screen, you've seen that this one had potentially flipped. Regardless, you're getting plus money here, or at least even money at the worst. If you shop around here on the O's, I get it. They got to go on the road. It's not like they've been crazy terrific or anything like that, but laying it with Tampa Bay, even at home, with the recent form. That wouldn't be the look for me, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's a little bit of sharp money on Tampa because the Orioles opened as a road favorite overnight. And now, like you said, they're even money. Tampa's minus 110. Teddy Covers talked about this with me earlier this week. He mentioned it again because Ross Benjamin broke this game down on WagerTalk today. And by the way, I co-hosted with Teddy, so it was a Prez-free zone. It is safe to go back and watch the replay on this Friday, June the 7th. And Teddy asked Ross and asked me earlier in the week, why are the Orioles being disrespected still? They're the most profitable team in baseball for several seasons. And one thing I mentioned earlier in the week when he asked me on Monday is that the Orioles were the worst money burner in baseball the 2 seasons prior. Now, the last 2 years, they've been the most profitable. So it takes a while for the markets to adjust. I would say that equilibrium is kind of happening right now. They're just a few games up on the money line for the season. They live and die by the long ball. They have a lot of home runs, but they also have a lot of strikeouts. So it really comes down to the pitching matchup in each and every game. If you look at Savale, he's been mediocre this season. He has allowed one home run or less in every one of his starts but one. He usually gives up about one dinger. He doesn't go much more than 5 innings, though, so that's not anything impressive. Not a huge strikeout guy, though. Had only 3 strikeouts in 2 of his last 3 starts. He's only 3 strikeouts. So I think the Orioles can maybe get to him tonight, and I don't necessarily agree with this line move. It's a game I stayed away from. If I had to play it, I'd probably lean over 8.5 just because I think Baltimore can get there. But then again, that Tampa offense is a little suspect at times.
How about you? What are you thinking in this one, Trig? I mean, a fair breakdown there from our man Steve Merril. 2 R's, 1 L. You can find him on X at Steve Merril. Nice and easy to find it. But what does at Top Flight SI have to say with Savale on the buck?
So I've cashed playing against the Orioles the past 2 days. I had Blue Jays on Wednesday and Thursday, both 4% plays. Felt a little fortunate to win both those games in the respect that Blue Jays finally came through with some timely hitting. In just watching those 2 games, I don't think the Orioles were the lesser team. It's just the Blue Jays finally got a couple big hits. And honestly, if there was one more inning yesterday, or a couple more outs, I might have been in trouble because the Orioles finally got it going. 2 in the 8th, 2 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th, and turned a 6-1 game into a 6-5 game. So maybe they carry a little bit of that momentum over here. I think I'm in agreement again with Steve, though. I think there's going to be runs here, more so than I would rather back runs than I would want the Orioles on the road. Now, the Orioles have dominated the AL East, so much so their last 20 series, Dan, against AL East opponents, they're 14-0-6, with 6 of them being split. It's 4-game series where they split 2-2. They have not lost a series to an AL East opponent in a long time, 20 series. So goes back well past this past season. And I don't think the Rays are a great baseball team, so I couldn't lay a price here with the Rays. Now, I don't think Irvin is going to continue this run he's on either. So that, makes me a little bit weary of the Orioles, especially because the Orioles, their main weakness, it shouldn't come as a surprise at this point, is the bullpen. That's kind of been on the display over the last couple days. So, if this is the spot where Irvin finally comes back to earth a little bit, then you've got to deal with, presumably you'd have to deal with their back end bullpen guys because they're not going to burn their top. They're already thin there. That's maybe where you get some runs in that regard. And then Savale's ERA, since showing up in Tampa, which was, 20, mid last season or whatever, he got, traded there, is over 5. And he hasn't really been great of late. And this Orioles lineup can hit the ball out of the ballpark. They do it as good as any team in the league. So I'm with Steve again. I think this one probably gets there as well. I see runs for both sides here.
I like it. Let's get some runs going, guys. That's what it is all about. We also had our guy, the Kraken, 2-4 over on Instagram, saying Trig going against the White Sox. The room is spinning. So he's been tuned in, locked in here for a while. Just had to give our guy our shout out over there. We appreciate you tuning in over there on the Instagram feed, as Steve Merril knows.
That's a very light opinion right there. I would not rush to the window to bet the Red Sox here. I'm just saying, if I was absolutely forced in that game, I'm not laying it with the White Sox yet.
Yeah,
Dan,
and Chris,
as you know, most people on Instagram
here.
live feed have the room is spinning because of all the day drinking, as you know, on the IG feed. So
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
from the NBA tip-off show. Yeah. I mean, it's closer to happy hour, but it's always happy hour here on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. So you never know what you're going to get over there on the Instagram channel. But we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit that follow. Just to put a little summary, a little bow on that game, Chris Both was asking. So both of these guys break it down for the over. Yes, that would be the look for the gentleman there in that Orioles and Tampa Bay Rays game. It's here in the chat again. David Gary, we like him asking about some first, third unders. Either of you guys bet any of that stuff? First, third. I mean, I do a lot of first five stuff. Sometimes, if it makes sense, I want to get some quick action. If I'm at the ballpark, I'll do some nerfy action. I don't think I dabbled as much as far as the first three bets go. Either of you guys do any of that?
I mean, one thing I'll say about that is it basically gets you through the full lineup once. So that's probably the one edge versus the first five is if you think a pitcher is going to dominate, he's not going to have to see the top of the order maybe the second time, the heart of the order. So I would say if I like an under with two starting pitchers, that would make more sense, but I haven't messed with it much otherwise.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
and Trig said, yeah, I never had bet him, right?
Well, I mean, that's got to be as easy as like just looking at first time through the order numbers. And the problem is I don't think it's going to be hard to find, like the books are going to be all over that. So if you've got a guy that's got really good numbers first time through, it's probably priced in. So I've never really looked at it much, but that's the way I would go at it. Like try to find someone that's got really good numbers first time through, or maybe target games where you're going to get an opener, right? Like, so the openers there, which maybe their numbers aren't overly priced into the game line. The Brewers have been doing it a lot with the opener. The Giants have done it recently ahead of Spencer Howard. So maybe you target those games knowing they're going to set their opener up. Like the Giants the other night went with, I think, Miller to make sure they had left on left against Jock Peterson and were able to get the matchups they wanted. And if that's the case, you're
Sounds like we lost our man Trig there for a second. All right. Well, we'll get Trig back. Don't worry. He's probably telling you something about first fives, or he's probably saying something about take a run and a half for some team. That's exactly what he's trying to break down. Trig, we do have you back, but guys, let's bump it here to another game, because actually one of the games that the chat is asking about is a game that Steve has tabbed in here as his best bet this evening. City by the Bay wants to hear about the A's game as they are taking on Prez's Toronto Blue Jays. Steve, best bet for you in this one. You getting creative for 162. It looks like an up. Bassett on the mound, Hogan Harris for the A's. Two teams that kind of different expectations maybe as the season goes on, but it's not like the records have been that crazy different for these two. What's your thoughts in this one, Steve?
Yeah, I know a lot of Toronto guys. The Prez, Carmine Bianco, they're Blue Jays. I can't think of anybody who would take the Oakland A's. So what I usually do is just throw it to Marco and Teddy and all the Vegas guys, Brian Leonard, your Las Vegas A's via Sacramento for the next 2 years. But it actually, all seriousness, that leads into a little bit to this handicap. They're a lame duck city. They're a lame duck team. They have no home field advantage. And as you know, Dan, I love to play road favorites on Fridays in game one because they usually don't overlook bad teams. They're focused. Now, I am a little concerned that Toronto's coming off that tough series against Baltimore and have to travel cross-country, no rest. And I'm not willing to lay $1.65-ish, which is the price. But then again, the -1.5 and what could be a low-scoring game gets a little dicey. We do get +105 there. So I'm going to do something a little creative here. I like the -1 run line. And now a lot of books offer this now. I'll throw out DraftKings, who's as big as anybody. They have it at -1, -135. But if you shop around and have multiple outs, as you should if you're serious about winning long-term, you can easily make your own -1 run line if you don't have it available. And in fact, you should always make your own because you get a better price normally by doing this. And here's a perfect example. Blue Jays currently -160, -170 at some books, -155 at other books. Take that -155, take the +105, take the +110. You can get it down to like -125 by putting half a unit on each, half a unit on the money line, half a unit on the -1.5 run line. You make your own -1 run line. And Dave Koken, the legend, used to talk about this a lot here on the baseball show as well. So once again, you get Toronto down to the minus 125, minus 135, minus one range. Gives us a little protection in case it is a tight game. But Blue Jays are the only way I would play this one. They're the superior team. Oakland's been getting by with a strong bullpen, decent pitching this year. But I don't think that'll be the case tonight. Harris has made only one start, and he only lasted 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, 4 hits. I don't look for too much out of him. I think Bassett can get it done tonight, and the Toronto Blue Jays have all the edges. Whenever possible, we'll fade the A's. I think this is a spot to do it tonight with Toronto.
Yeah, a little late night special there, and you have a Toronto team who has to maybe have this series circled as like, hey, this could be the turning point of the season. If we get a series win here, we're going to be sitting at 500, and then we can start to roll. So some maybe added motivation outside of let's beat the lowly A's. Steve getting a little creative, going with the Dave Koken special of making his own -1. The game earlier, I made my own +1, so I like it. We're getting creative here on a Friday edition of First Pitch. Trig, I want you to get creative. Give us a best bet here in the Rangers and the Giants game. This one going at 8:05 on the East Coast. Michael Lorenzen going to be on the bump for the home dog of Texas, and looks like they're taking on seeing Logan Webb. So righty on righty crime here, and we actually have seen some money go towards that home dog, pushing it to plus money on the other side. How are we looking to bet this one, Trig? Because I'm seeing a little bit of a split consensus out here.
Well, when I picked this game for bets, Rangers were still kind of plus money. I think plus 105. And
I think we're still getting
my
that.
general. Yeah, I guess my general sort of basis for liking the Rangers here is I didn't think they should be a home underdog to the Giants in their current state. Now, I definitely am going to, want to see a lineup here. I want to make sure that, I want to see if Nick Ahmed is back for the Giants. If he's not, they've had some real issues in the field. They're a team that's just been absolutely decimated by injury over the last 3 weeks, starting with Jung-Ho Lee. Lamont Wade going down was the really impactful one, in my opinion. He was kind of playing the best out of any Giant, position player. Luciano goes down, which caused Casey Schmidt to end up at shortstop the other day, kicking the ball all over the field. And then, of course, you have Blake Snell going down, which has put a little bit of a hole in the rotation, which is kind of important for this series because, both of these, if you look at like the pitching going into the weekend, both of these teams have question marks with what they're going to do Saturday and Sunday from a pitching perspective. But the Giants have to play the Astros at home on Monday, and the Rangers have a day off. So I do think the Rangers are in a better position here to utilize their bullpen more, go with their high leverage relievers, burn out certain relievers if they need to, whereas the Giants just aren't, because they're one spot in the rotation right now, Dan, is opener, Spencer Howard, top bullpen guys, and that's probably coming up on either Monday or Tuesday for them. So they've got to be a little bit more careful with, which relievers they use, and I think that's going to cause them. Actually, I pretty much know, watching Bob Melvin manage this year, that he's going to have Logan Webb out there for 7 innings. It's been his sort of solution. And now Webb is awesome. He usually has it. I will point out that he's like Jake DeGrom 2.0 in the respect that his team just does not score for him. I don't know what there is to that, but the Giants are 1-6 in Webb's last 7 starts. Despite him having a 3.54 ERA in that span, the Giants only averaged 3.14 runs per game in that span of 7 starts for him. So they don't score for him. I don't know if that carries over here, but it's certainly something notable. He has very good career numbers against the Rangers, but I think a lot of this stuff is priced in. And that's why I'm kind of willing to go against it, with the respect that I think the Rangers are the better team. I think Webb being really good is priced in. Otherwise, why would the Giants be a road favorite here? Corey Seager might miss this game. Again, we're already pricing in Webb being this elite pitcher. So on a one-off scenario, I'm not that worried about Seager. And getting lost in the shuffle here, Dan, is the fact that Mike Lorenzen, over his last 4 starts, has a 1.05 ERA, and he's just been dominant. Could make a strong case that maybe the Rangers actually have the better starting pitcher here, at least smaller sample size. Last 4 or 5 games would suggest that. So right now, with the mix of players, if you watch the Giants in that series with the Diamondbacks, and if you watch them over the weekend with the Yankees, the mix of guys they have on the field right now is not their optimal mix of players. Defense, certain guys playing out of position. So I just wouldn't be able to back the Giants here as a road favorite under those circumstances. And then even if you say, okay, Logan Webb, Lorenzen, they cancel out. Right now, the Rangers are in much better position late in the game. Neither of these bullpens have been good, Dan. Both bullpens have been like bottom 10 in the league all season. But the Rangers barely used any relievers earlier this week. The Giants had to cook through their bullpen in a close game against the D-backs. Then the one game they had to use all their relievers around Spencer Howard. And they've got the game on Monday, whereas the Rangers have the off day. So I think the Rangers are just in a better position to have success here. They're at home. You're getting plus money. I think it's a good numbers play. So Rangers plus 105, my best bet for the show.
Rangers at the plus money, and you can shop around and still find that nice price that Trig is talking about there. Consensus line telling you about even money, but there are still some nice plus 105s out there. That's the look for Trig. The best bet for my man Steve Merril, Blue Jays and A's. He's making the Blue Jays into a 1-run favorite, splitting up the bet on the run line and on the money line. Gentlemen, on the way out here, I want to remind people, obviously, check these guys out over at WagerTalk.com. Still have that June special. It's going to expire soon, so definitely lock it in now. You want to get all of the action through the rest of the month. You can do it for just over $7 a day. That price goes a little higher every day you wait. So why not rock with these guys? Start June here, the first week, with a bang and end it with a bang. Action all the way through the NBA Finals, MLB action as well. Check that out over at WagerTalk.com. But for my man Tyler, he's a loyal listener. He wants us to talk this Pittsburgh and Twins game, so we'll get some quick thoughts from Trig and from Merril here. Everybody talks about Merril, how hot our pitcher as far as Skeens is concerned here for Pittsburgh. But don't look any further than the right-hander Mitch Keller. I mean, he's looking to make it 6 straight with the start here tonight. Minnesota was the latest that has had to face that grim reaper that is the Yankees. They get swept. Before that, they were coming off a series win against Houston. So you would think, hey, bounce back win chance for Minnesota. But it's Joe Ryan who's going to be on the mound. He needs to bounce back from that outing that he had last. How are you looking to bet this one, Steve, if you have anything?
Yeah, if Ryan's really a Class A starter, he should bounce back. In fact, he had a 5-inning outing against the Yankees when he gave up 4 runs, 6 hits, and then he went back-to-back great starts, 14 innings, 1 run, and then that bad one against Houston on June 1st. So look for him to bounce back here. Would probably get me leaning that way. But like you said, Dan, Keller's been pretty strong as well. So maybe a look to the under. And isn't it a coincidence that Keller turned the season around, started pitching well in early May, and then Skeens comes into the lineup? If the two of them keep pitching like they do, that's an extra 10, 15 wins maybe for the Pirates, and they very well could sneak into that wild card. I told Dave Sherapan that last night with Joe Ranieri on Sports Grid, and didn't really think of the Pirates as a playoff team, but if they keep getting pitching like this from Skeens and Keller, they might have a chance.
Yeah, I might even look to just go first 5 for Keller, because that does concern me about the Twins being able to bounce back as far as the full game is concerned. Trig, you have anything, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, or is this a sheer pass for you?
I'm definitely selling the Pirates making the playoffs. Be willing to bet against that. I don't think they're a playoff team. I know they have a couple of good pitchers, but still quite a ways away from being a playoff team, in my opinion. The Minnesota Twins, 18-4 against teams with a record under 500. They just got Royce Lewis back. So I would, I thought about Twins here. I didn't really want to lay the -130, but this was like kind of on my shorter list for today. I've always liked Joe Ryan. He's someone I've looked to back this season. So the Twins make sense. Again, it was one I gave some consideration to, and I do think that Buxton back in the lineup, Lewis back. The Twins could be a team that I buy in the near future. So lean Twins.
Lean in the Twins there. So Tyler, you saw the comment up there as we were setting up the game. He said there was a pick bot that said reply winner and you get a free pick. The free pick that they gave out to him was the Twins money line. So it's a lock of the century. Go with the Twins according to the Twitter bot that we got from our man Tyler. Shout out to the chat. We appreciate you. On the way out, make sure you hit that like button. That would be a true way that we would appreciate you there as well. Check these guys out for that June special. Of course, WT.buzz/deals is the quickest way to get there. Stay hanging out with us, though. Stay right here on the channel. Look through all the free content that we have, because just a few hours away, NBA tip-off coming your way, getting you ready for, another 4 years until the next game here in the NBA Finals. They'll get you ready for Sunday. Look back. It's Teddy Covers that's going to be joining Joe Ranieri coming up here live on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. So more reasons than ever. Make sure you click that little bell, and you don't have to go anywhere to get all that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. You can get it around the clock right here, WagerTalk TV. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the games in London, folks. Go Phils, of course, and hopefully next time we talk, got a little money in our pocket. We'll see you then.